And sometimes before the procedure, they give you Ativan to make you relax. And then the rest of the day, you focus on all of the best objectives, and you complete them all. Welcome to Hacking Business Technology, episode number 51. We've got Miss Farah and Marasaki down below.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
Podcasting.
How's it going?
Hoops in Europe. Oh, we have a special guest. I like it.
It's Hooper at Sits.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's at Sits still, actually.
Yeah.
Does it wrap up today?
I think he's in the air. So he did 2 conferences recently. One was the
One was the Land
one.
Right. Yes, and the other one is Sits. What is Sits, anyways? It's in London, right?
Yeah, I guess I don't even know. Is it SDI's conference? I think it's SD conference.
Yeah, I mean,
The
We are not very worldly people. As you
I see a lot of Toby around for this conference. I know he helps put it on. But yeah, I think it is SDI.
I know it costs a lot of money to get there.
They probably wear tuxes at some point, like all of the European conferences seem to do. I don't know why.
There's a lot of food and drink involved.
Do you have a tux?
I do not. I wish I did, now that you mention it. You have a tux? Really?
Mm-hmm.
What led you to buy a tux?
Friend of mine, her husband passed away unexpectedly, and we were the same size.
Oh, okay.
It was a really sad story. But, actually what's really funny is when I wear that tux, I think about him a lot. It's sort of like, I feel like I'm living his life again for him. I don't know.
Huh. Another form of kind of like putting yourself in someone else's shoes or clothes.
Yeah, and I think about him, and so I sort of act more like him. He was very debonair. He was like a debonair version of me. Really interested in a lot of different things and really passionate, and you could talk to him for hours. But he was a bit more suave. So did you read about Sits, Farhan? Did you do the research? Who owns it? Is
Yeah,
it
I just pulled it up. So here's what's interesting. So there was, if I look at some of the keynotes here, does your business really need a service desk? No. Growing a culture of trust, teamwork, and fun. Why we should champion equality in the IT workplace.
That one's a duh.
Happy staff equals happy customers, building the enabled workforce. And our main man, Gerard, using the service desk to market IT to your customers. Interesting. Morphing from technician into manager. So,
we should put a date on each one of these titles.
right? And see how many of them repeat like 5 years from now. So, without any reading through any of the abstracts, rather, culture comes up, equality, so that's people-driven, happy staff, happy customers, people-driven.
Sounds a lot like ITSMF. It sounds a lot like Fusion.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Without any DevOps focus, probably.
And so on the Twitter stream or the Instagram scene or whatever, you saw Patrick Bolger was there, Stuart Rance, Andrea Kiss, one of the ladies from Manta Consulting was there.
Yes, cool.
Yeah. And so all the usual suspects. I think All Things ITSM was podcasting like every hour there.
Oh, they were?
Yeah, there was a lot of content that came out of them on the Twitter stream.
Can we talk about all things ITSM for a minute?
Yeah. What do you think about it?
What's fascinating to me is how they've pulled it together and really kind of brought the pure ITSM community to, I wouldn't necessarily say action, but to attention. At least they seem to. That's the way they come off. In a way that ITSM Review could not. I think that's more interesting to me.
Yeah, ITSM Review seemed a bit more. It was all vendor. It was high vendor content. Mr. William Goddard has a lot of energy. Go-to marketers, I guess, and he backed a lot of it. And I don't know how they're organized, and I didn't really grill him because it's none of my business. But they have the usual regulars. Like, it seems like Carlos Casanova shows up no matter what continent they're on. Kirsten has been on every continent no matter what they're on. They sometimes mix up the third guest if someone can't be on.
Ken Gon's on there sometimes. Yeah. But, I mean, definitely pure ITSM.
And about 15 minutes long. The production's pretty, it's impressive. They've got a crew. When you walk into the room, they've got 4 people doing production, whereas we have 0. Like, I'm comparing them to us because I do that because our culture makes me do that. But they're different. And, one of the features I really like about it, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. I mean, at least watch mine or something. On the right-hand side here, they've got little clickable links. You can skip to sections, which I think is a really cool feature, but I know which person in the room is doing all that timestamping. I guess that's something that Hangout could actually use as a pretty good feature, like timestamp this Hangout at this moment and be able to skip it or like type in a description later or something.
Well, it's good. It's kind of bringing some focus and attention back to the service management space, where I think there has been a time period where it's kind of fizzled out. The talk, the buzz, around ITSM. I almost feel as though for a while people were hiding, kind of hiding and embarrassed to talk about ITSM as if it's a bad thing because people are thinking, you ITIL folks don't get it or what have you. There was just this weird space for some time. But I think service management is very relevant. It's just shifting. And the skep, in an unskep-like fashion, Mark, you had brought up a blog post that I found interesting to read through his perspective on how, forget ITSM, there's a new shift again.
Yeah.
Perspective, and he calls it being liberated.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure he knows what's going on, but he notices something. Focus on people more, I guess. And yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Far, that it seems like things died down for a while, and it's interesting to me because just personally in my life, I've backed away some, and it seems to have timed, in alignment with something else going on, just collectively, but. I don't know. I mean, all things ITSM seems to be playing some role in bringing things back to focus. People are anxious to know, I think, what DevOps means, what Agile means, the people culture side of things, and that sort of thing. And
somewhat of an identity crisis in a way.
Yeah.
Right? We were so focused on process and service and defining all of that and kind of aligning to technology. And I think it was always known there's those people, process, product, partner, or whatever piece. But yet somehow people's focus, I think, was always on the process side. And I really liked, what not only what the skep said, but there was a reply in his article with Larry Cooper. And he talked about a book, Agile Value Delivery Beyond the Numbers. And apparently the mantra in that book is that leadership facilitates, process enables, and people deliver.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that's a great way of summing it up, and I think maybe that's what it is that we've been struggling for so long. We say yes, do no when it comes to the people aspect of it, and now I think we're finally gaining momentum in that space, where we understand what it means to put the people first and have them understand that they drive this, right? They're the drivers in the vehicle as this gets it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, so that brings up a couple things. So as we automate more and we eliminate operations roles, because DevOps is going to make us have to manage our environment and add a lot less because we're going to rely on automation for that. What happens to these other crews? So, for example, someone from HDI asked this week, hey, we should really have a presentation on DevOps. And I think, like, when someone says that and they work for a help desk organization, I think, well, the first 3 is not you, and the second 3 is you, so start learning the first 3.
What do you mean first 3? First 3 what?
The first 3 letters. Dev. Do you like to dev? You are ops. Do you like to dev?
Yeah.
Right? And you'll probably be the low-level DevOps resources, whether they're, you know, whatever their title ends up being.
Yeah. Well, I mean, IT's still in a huge shift. I mean, nothing's changed really. You know, you had Charles Araujo and all those people talking about transformation and how that's so necessary. IT is becoming obsolete, all this stuff. Unless we do something, I still believe there's no chance. There's no doing something. So the shift will complete when operations is fully commoditized, right? When it's fully either automated or sourced. So IT, in my mind, becomes the cloud. I mean, that's the easiest way to put it, right? So your major Google and Microsoft and Amazon data centers are IT as we know it in terms of operations. And the rest is where we can put our focus on. But that's when the transition is complete to me.
Yeah, because assumedly your managed service providers are better at delivering the environment, the platform, such that your downtime due to environment or hardware is likely hopefully decrease significantly, or it's a contract that you're supposed to manage, and you know, if it's redundant hardware, then it shouldn't really be an issue, but you still want to manage it as a contract. Yeah. It becomes more about development of an application.
Yeah.
And so you're offloading a lot of work that especially middleware developers always had to deal with, was the application layer on the servers. And so if they can just depend on the server to provide something very standard and very specific, and I think that's one of the key tenets of DevOps automations, really, is just making sure that you've got those standards in place for your sourcing providers so that you can trust them and you've got production support ready when you push code to it so that you know it's a redundant server. It can scale up and scale down.
Right. And so DevOps, the emergence of DevOps was really timely because of this, everything moving to the cloud or what have you. So automation kind of kick-started some of that as well. Oh my God, we have automation sending, you know, or manipulating things off-site. We're going to have to get dev more involved because we don't even know who these ops people are, right? So it's not just the way maybe it started where it was dev in one room and ops in the other room. It's a commoditized IT functionality that we know nothing about off-site.
Ops, DevOps.
So, go ahead, Bar.
I was just going to say is that, you know, and when you think of the impact that has on service management, for the organization that's using that service, the Amazon, the Googles, it becomes less about operations. But the concepts of service management at the core are still very relevant for the opposite side, right? And now it becomes an exercise in service delivery, service level management. Does dev become a little bit more sloppier with their code because the expectation is that if they have a stable environment, they don't have to worry about consequences as they did before? You know, there's it poses some interesting questions around how will there be a shift in behavior in what they expect of their service providers, what they get used to, what their demands are for the environment, how those contracts are structured, privacy, security. Yeah. These are all service management topics that are not going to go away, and we have to increase in many ways our maturity or depth of understanding in these other topics over incident management,
But I can bet you that presentation at SDI over whether or not a service desk is still relevant is trying to make the case that it is, without facing the fact that the service desk can be automated itself, right?
Right.
So the service desk, if you want to talk about it and you're insistent on using those terms, or that term, you're going to have to accept the fact that the service desk is something much different than we've ever defined it before, right?
And so what's interesting is that actually is a panel, or was a panel rather, because we're done with SITS now. Stephen Mann hosted it, which is interesting and entertaining. And it was a debate, so among panelists. And so he says the consumerization of IT means that anyone in the business can source powerful cloud services and hardware to fuel their productivity. You're like, this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? But the real challenge isn't the consumerization of IT, it's the consumerization of service.
Yes.
Right? The panel was asking whether the service desk has grasped how fundamentally IT consumption has changed and whether it's responding to consumerization quickly enough to remain as a critical service to business.
Say that last part again, Far.
That how fundamentally IT consumption has changed and whether the service desk is responding to consumerization quickly enough to remain a critical service to the business.
Yeah. No. Move on.
Did they post the results on Twitter?
Who won this here debate?
Yeah.
That's tough to say. I don't know. How many of you have either of you worked on a service desk where they didn't take calls?
No. Well, I mean, again, what's a call, right? But no.
You didn't log into an ACD, an automated call distribution. Cool. Every time I've always logged into an ACD. I wonder where ACDs live in DevOps.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, we go back to what we mention every now and then about how Google or Facebook or whatever doesn't really have a service desk, and
you just get a random chat pop up. Hey, click here to chat,
perhaps, which is really no different than a call. But what I'm pointing towards is even that's got to go away.
Yeah, because how do you know which person to route to? Like, let's get in some questions. Let's get through some knowledge base articles, and then say, based on these 7 articles that you viewed, you should probably talk to Tony. Just click here to connect to Tony. Or leave a message right here.
There you go. Now you're getting into wisdom driven from data, right? That's like analytics at work for you right there. And I think that is...
Yeah, I mean, if the tools themselves...
You wrote over 50% of the knowledge articles that you just read before you clicked chat on support. Let's connect you to that.
Yeah. Yeah, so pervasive knowledge, preemptive knowledge, together with tools that actually provide support.
Smart routing.
Right. So if the tool is telling you itself that it's having issues and telling you when you're expected to be back up and that sort of thing, and we get rid of individual incidents and we're just talking about mass incidents, major incidents for apps that aren't device-based anymore. So I mean, all these factors come into play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eliminating the need for a service desk.
Man, just imagine
the classic incident management process.
Wait, what did you say?
Or perhaps even the classic incident management process.
Yeah.
Right? We record, we classify, prioritize.
Yeah, we've outgrown that.
It's too heavy. It's clearly too heavy, and I think a lot of people recognize that, especially in a DevOps state. And that's why case management is so popular.
Yeah.
And Kanban style working. Charles Betts said we should just do Kanban for incident, problem, and change.
Yeah. But the question is...
Not change. I think he said request.
That's interesting. All right. But yeah, when does my individual incident become important enough to become an incident? I mean, that's an important question.
To a system. I mean, so imagine if we had a problem with this Hangout. Imagine we could just click on a button, and in pops Jim, and he is literally, hey, I'm Jim. I just noticed you're having an issue. Your video's freezing up.
Yeah.
And he talks to you and he says, you need to do such and such, and he walks you through it, and then when you're all done, you're saying, thanks, Jim. That's it.
Or
client interaction.
Are you picturing Jim as a real person or no?
Yeah, he's a real person. We present you to the dude who knows how to fix your problem.
Right. Or it could just be thresholds within some sort of monitoring system that either can automate that tweak for you or what have you, or they're just service levels that you deal with.
That's kind of interesting. Error-resistant programming?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? That's a lot of automation isn't clicked. It's automation that stems from other automation, right? It's not someone pressing a button. It's just threshold-based.
Self-healing CIs. Mark, you've said that for many years.
But I'm glad that SDI is actually debating it. I mean, or at the SITS conference. I mean, at least it's that. That's good.
Yeah, I just think that platform is just... It's a war that's been won to a certain extent, at least for now. At least the battlefield's pretty well cleared off. And I just wonder, at what point do we stop innovating on a platform because it's just too expensive? I just want more. I want more out of everything. I went to a training actually yesterday around ITFM, and it was amazing. Very simple. ITFM makes service management look like brain surgery. Really, it's all about just tying in GL and getting all the financial data into pretty-looking graphs so people can say, huh? We're spending $6 million on who?
You raise an interesting point. I mean, seeing that with so many clients, I think no matter what we say, service management is inherently complex. Not because of the processes of themselves, it's because of the touch points, and there's so much by way of people impact. There's no one single way of doing something. So you're catering to different procedures, there may be similar activities, but how they're done is different. The personality involved, how Mark talks with a customer who's calling in will be completely different from how Matt does. How Mark might think to troubleshoot something is completely different than how Matt will think to troubleshoot something. And so your catering it is still, remarkable to me that, people underestimate the complexities that are involved in service management.
It's humans.
Yeah.
Doctors have the same thing. You simply cannot put them into categories. You cannot say if this, then that. You have to throw that rule out.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I think Six Sigma isn't very good for IT either. I mean, it's just we're not talking about that kind of consistency where you can deal with, 6 parts per million or whatever.
Jeez.
Well, in some cases we are. I guess it depends on the size of the shop and the level of automation.
Yeah. Passive resets maybe.
But
Or in CMDB automation world.
Yeah.
What are we leaving our listeners with to have this conversation we're having right now is an important conversation for our listeners to consider in their organizations, right? This shift. What is this shift? Defining this shift, understanding this shift. And if we are going to be more people-centric, what are we letting them off with? How do they have this conversation?
Okay, so let me take it down a level. So I'm not at all saying that you should get rid of your service desk right now. I mean, that would be stupid. Of course, you have calls coming in, you have to deal with them, but the point is, and if you want to be forward-thinking, don't beef up your service desk. Don't make your service desk better. Fix your stuff. Offer those types of operational services from the dev side, right? So focus on strategy and design. Get away from operations. Your goal should be to get rid of your service desks, right? That's something that an organization can do something with.
Yeah. Tell that objective to leadership.
Stuff.
Yeah, I almost said another word.
We get passionate about it. We always get passionate when we're hacking business technology. Thanks for having this episode. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.